Ed?
God, give us grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, courage to change the things which should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace. May you guide us as we serve our community. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Fox,
Yes.
Sperling,
Yes.
Blevins,
Yes.
Beck,
Here.
Whittick,
Here.
Wheeler.
Yes.
Previous minutes. Everyone had a chance to review those.
I have one correction there.
Okay, is that over flavor?
Is that the flavor?
Yeah. Oh, no, I don't know what, in the administrator's report, under number 2, I'd like to strike out the high winds causing.
Wondered about that.
Report was high winds causing damage to telephone poles.
Number same flavor. Before number 3.
Do you know where that is on the flavor business?
No,
No? It was supposed to be favor, and you put flavor?
oh, Slasher said he was in flavor.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Your flavor body
And
cameras.
maybe he said that, but that's not what he meant.
Yeah, there it is.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're
Yeah.
scratching that one and changing that word, right?
Yep,
Okay.
we'll change that to favor.
All right.
Well, upon those corrections, I'll make a motion to accept the meetings of the 12/08/14.
Second. Need to do some discussion about it. Roll call, please.
Sterling,
Yes.
Blevins,
Yes.
Beck,
Yes.
Whittick,
Yes.
Wheelan,
Yes.
Fox.
Yes. Finance report.
We accept the finance report as presented for January.
I'll second that.
Any discussions at all? Roll call?
Blevins,
Yes.
Beck,
Yes.
Whittick,
Yes.
Wheelan,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Sterling.
Yes.
That brings us to communications. At this point, just so he doesn't have to stay here for the entire meeting unless, of course, he really would like to, Chief Slusher has an individual he would like to get sworn in this evening.
Sworn in, swore at. All right, gentlemen, I just want to introduce you to James Shire. He'll be with us here real shortly. James is originally from Defiance, still living in Defiance, actually. Was a full-time deputy with Defiance County Sheriff's Office from 2002 to 2014. Took a position with the Kentucky State Police Academy, but got down there and the back gave out on him and found out you weren't 18 anymore. But he's back in the area looking for opportunities, and he's going to be a great addition to us. I mean, the wealth of knowledge and experience, and it's going to be definitely a welcome addition. So we'll get right at it.
Thank you. Raise your right hand, please. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and laws of the United States of America,
and laws of the United States of America,
Constitution,
Constitution,
and laws of the state of Ohio,
and laws of the state of Ohio,
and laws and ordinances of the political subdivision
and laws and ordinances of political subdivisions,
to which I am appointed,
to which I am appointed,
and to the best of my ability
and to the best of my ability,
will discharge the duties of this office.
will discharge the duties of this office.
Welcome aboard, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
There you are. Thank you.
Signature appointee. All right, good to go. Thank you.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank you again. Appreciate
Go
it.
All right, does anyone on council have any communications? Anyone with the village? I've got a couple. I'm guessing that we'll go over it later, so I won't go into great detail, but I did receive a certified letter from Schulman announcing the plant closure under the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act. And that was dated December 29th of 2014. Also, what?
I was just saying, I have one letter I put in your packets regarding online classes. For those that didn't go when it was at Archibald, that is available now online, the records class.
And I also received from the Stryker Post Prom Committee a letter requesting any donations or door prizes for the students for the Stryker Post Prom. And they would request a response by Monday, March 23rd. I realize the village doesn't currently have those finances available. However, I thought I would bring it to everyone's attention in case you would like to donate. So on. That's what I've got, reference communications. That brings us to citizens, of which I see we have several. So we have Gary Keys from Toledo Edison listed first. So Gary, we'll start with you.
Okay, thank you. Give me my card. I understand that one of our councilmen had an outage during the last windstorm. And first of all, I'd like to apologize for being out so long. I did a little research on the windstorm. That outage, we had about 60,000 customers out during that storm. And I just want to kind of go over our process on how we handle large outages like that. Typically, what we do is we try to repair or restore outages to what we call critical customers. That would be the hospitals first, senior citizens, 911 agencies, cell towers, that type of thing. From then on, we work our way down, work with our larger industries.
Major test, it may take a while, let's disclose it.
So, then we work with our large industrial customers to try to get them back on next, so they don't have to disrupt their work schedule for that night. And then from there we work down to businesses, and unfortunately last is the small residential customers. So unfortunately somebody's got to be last, and what we do when it gets to residential customers, we usually try to bring in larger groups at one time. That we'll bring in circuits, the bigger circuits like subdivisions, large groups, and there again, unfortunately, the single outages are the ones that are restored at the very end. So just kind of wanted to go through the process that we have. Now, during a bigger storm, we do have means to bring in other workers from our other utilities. We have roughly 17,500 employees, and we can bring in linemen from as far away as Cleveland, Akron. But unfortunately, during that windstorm, they were having outages also, so we weren't able to bring anybody in. And I know the next day we even had up to almost 500 still out that were out for almost 24 hours. So it was a long outage. Normally, on an average outage, typical Toledo Edison customers only out for about 2 to 4 hours. So as you can tell, it was a little bit longer outage than normal. So, but I just wanted to come tonight and kind of give you the process on how we restore customers. And you know, that's the last thing we like is to have customers out of power. So be glad to answer any questions that anybody had.
I think one of the things that, as I sat here and listened that night, one of the concerns was lack of communication.
Okay.
Especially since there were vehicles already here,
Okay.
and then they left and then came back the next day.
Okay.
So I think what I gathered from the whole thing was not knowing. Are they gonna be back in an hour? Are they coming back in 2 hours? Are we gonna see them again?
Okay.
It was just one of those where it's an extremely cold night,
Right.
and we had no idea how to prepare,
Okay.
is how I
Well,
perceived it.
And there were some 90-plus-year-olds in that.
Yeah.
So it's like anything, the communication side.
Okay.
Me personally, I would like to see, I don't know how you guys handle it on your end, letting the mayor or whoever, council, say, hey, you guys are gonna be out, you know, whatever, 12, 14 hours. So if people do call up here, we can say, okay, they're saying that you're gonna be out this long, you know, maybe we can set up a shelter for those people.
Actually, I think there was a Red Cross shelter set up, I believe in Defiance. The problem is nobody showed up. So after a few hours, they closed it down even.
Well, if they don't know that it's gonna be more than a few hours, then
Yeah,
why would you go to Defiance?
Now, what we do, normally we'll contact the EMAs, and that we did. We'll contact the EMAs, let them know it's a longer outage. So they were aware of it. They were aware it was a long outage, because what we do, we send out a blast email. But there again, if nobody calls them, you know.
Gary, can you
Yeah.
also explain, you and I spoke, and I tried to repeat the sentiments of one of our council persons, but, you know, if they would have known ahead of time, they could have got a motel or this or that, and your explanation to that being of the neighbors and your situation, why Toledo Edison's policy is not to say, well, 2 hours is
Right.
expected. Could you address that?
Yeah,
for
it's, you know, it's tough to, and I deal with the media as well, whenever we have a major outage. And the last thing I can give them, you know, we'll have your power back on in 4 hours or 8 hours. As soon as that 8 hours is up and it goes into 10 hours, I've got the media calling me. So if I tell you your power's gonna be off for 2 days or for 2 hours, you get a hotel room and it's back on the next hour, you're gonna call me up and say, wait a minute, you just told me. So it's kind of
Absolutely.
a double-edged sword.
And
It's,
I don't know that we're looking at an exact time.
Right,
It's,
okay.
it's one of those, give us a ballpark.
Sure,
You know, it might be a while.
yeah.
Okay, that tells me I need to find something else.
All right, and who do I need to tell that to?
Well,
That's the question.
Yeah, there's a lot of.
I was on that
there.
scene for about 5 hours that night. I'm the fire chief and striker here, and we didn't hear nothing.
Yeah. Well, for that storm, you have to remember, our guys had already worked an 8-hour shift. So we only work them 16 hours, I mean, because it's a safety issue. So probably what happened after their 16 hours is up, if they were in town, they went home and probably got rest. and came back the next day, and I think probably that's what happened.
Well, what was real screwy about the whole thing? 'Cause I actually called it in, 'cause my whole 2 blocks on my street.
We're out, yeah.
A guy came, and we looked at his map and everything, and I told him what was out from church to church,
Right.
all on Defiance Street. So he was gonna go down, I said, it looks to me like a transporter might have popped down on Curtis Street.
Right.
So he was gonna go look, well, I went back inside my house, then we got toned out to another call down at the trailer park.
Okay.
Well, we're sitting down at the trailer park. I ended up going down to talk to that gentleman to see if he knew anything about the trailer park. He was gone. There was nobody around. So I asked Central if they would call again, and they did.
Okay.
And then, what was it, Rick, probably an hour after that?
Somebody else showed
One of
up.
your other guys showed up.
Right.
He goes, well, wasn't someone here? Yeah. What did he say? He was just,
What they call it, they're called hazard responders. And what they usually do, if there's a line down, they'll come and instead of having your police department or, sit on that line for whatever number of hours, sometimes we'll pull them off if there's an emergency and send them somewhere else. Now, I don't know if that happened in this case or not, I'm not
he
sure.
said something, he wasn't a lineman.
Right, normally they're like an engineer, a meter reader, or an estimator.
He was in a truck.
Yeah, what we do, we send him out, he's probably a meter mechanic, is probably what he was. And what we do, we send these guys out, they're on call all the time, just like I am. And we'll send them out to sit down at that, and there again, they'll work for 16 hours, but, and maybe that's what happened also. Maybe that person had his 16 hours in, sent him home, and we sent somebody else out. So, like I said, I'm not sure what happened, but.
Yeah, and then when the other gentleman come back, we were talking to him, and he didn't have any inkling on what happened out at the trailer park, so he
Right.
was gonna call that
Yeah, normally
guy.
they wouldn't have any information. What they do, they get orders from dispatching, our central office, to go out and sit on a wire until we get it repaired or somebody else can come over.
But if there was already one person out and at that location, what dispatch had that information? That
Yeah, but you gotta remember, they've got thousands of orders. I
So it
mean,
just sounds like communication issue.
well, they got thousands of orders. They can't say there's a line down on Beach Street and another one. I mean, they're fielding calls like thousands in a 24-hour period. So, but yeah, if you tell me who to contact, and I'll be glad to
Within
do
your
that.
protocol, you had mentioned contacting the EMA office,
Yeah.
which is staff.
Yep.
And we now have the countywide alert system that goes off through cell phones, telephones, all kinds of different things.
Okay.
Can they, or can it be requested? We have an outage in Stryker, Ohio. We don't have a time frame at this point, but we're working on it. Can they send that alert out?
Sure can.
Because they're staffed. I mean, there's going to be
Yeah.
somebody
They-
there.
they
Within a
have-
few minutes, it's out to everybody.
They have my number. I mean, every mayor has my number. In Williamsville, Defiance counties that I serve, I mean, I've been on this job for 30 years.
Yeah.
And everybody has my number.
It seems like that would be the easy way.
Yeah, because it is.
Hey, Bob, on that, too, we're talking about more of that, they cannot pinpoint this striker, though.
Yeah, they can.
Yeah.
I was at those meetings.
Whoever
They can
lives in
pinpoint that
Canton.
block or 2 blocks or whatever.
The EMA can, what is it, the
The alert
enhanced
system
911, is that what it is now?
No,
No,
it's
it's
county
a
wide.
86.
Okay, I'm not familiar with it. When did that take effect?
Not too long ago.
Yeah, it's just-
Okay, why don't I get a hold of, let's see, who's the director?
Don Baldwin.
Don, yeah. Yeah, I'll get a hold of Don and I'll see, because I get it over my smartphone as soon as we have an outage. I know exactly where the outages are. I know how many customers are out. It's just a matter of me calling somebody and saying, hey, we're gonna be out for 2 days or 4 hours.
Whatever it is.
And if they can send that alert out to
That would
whoever
be-
they have on their list, we can do it that
I
way.
think that would go.
Yeah, we're glad to do it.
I would think, my first instinct here is if you're contacting the EMA, I would say you've done
your due diligence, and now it's in our hands. to
Well, like I said, all the mayors and most council members have my number, or the EMA directors all have my number as well. Because we brought them into our RDO, our dispatching office in Holland. You know, at Holland, and showed them exactly what, anybody else? Show how we dispatch and what the protocol that we go through, the process, and you know, the thing is, a lot of people think that a light shows up on a board when your power goes out, and well, okay, power's out at 311 Summit Street, well, that isn't the way it works. Whenever you have an outage, you have to call the toll-free number. You have to call somebody, because you may be the only one on that transformer, on that fuse, or on that, that line. So unless somebody calls us, we really don't know.
We called, I can't tell you how many times during that outage, people would call us, and basically Peggy would call it in, just
Yeah.
to say, hey, we've got another call.
Yeah.
So I can imagine all the calls that you had, over 60,000 people.
Oh, and the thing was, it was sustained wind. We'd get somebody back in service. A couple hours later, we had to go back out and put them right back in again. The fuse would pop. And, I mean, it was just a crazy storm.
We appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Mr. Flanson, Mr. Schindler, would you like to?
Sure. It's a new year and another year. I see a few new faces on the console, and just want to know, just making sure you didn't forget about township.
I'll take it.
Okay.
I can be the bad guy. Recent budget reports, and over the last actual 4 years, we have seen a decrease each year in our income and in our reserve funding. So although I think everybody still is of the same opinion that we would love to assist if we can, financially, we don't have, we're trying to figure out ways of cutting budgets and saving money just to survive. And that's kind of where we're at today. If anyone else would like to add to that.
We sat here last week, looking at budgets from the judiciary side, looking at different things to cut. We're doing some cuts, and I think any of the members here that are employed by the village, we've asked, and it may come out a little bit later, but we've asked them to seriously take a look at what are we doing day to day. We're kicking every tire we can right now. It's unfortunate. I wish things were much better. I know from my side, I want to do anything I can for the fire department, because they're huge.
We haven't forgotten.
Correct.
Just as, we've been in there for 2 years now. I think on the trustees' part, firemen's part, we've been pretty decent about it and everything, and really haven't asked for, anything out of the ordinary. Just out of small token, just drop our water bill. That would save us a little money that we could put back into paying for this. Simple stuff like that, isn't gonna hurt you guys in the long run. The water, yeah, you gotta pump it, but you're pumping it anyway. I don't think that building down there goes through that much in utility and water.
I think it's $100 to $130.
I think Mr. Fox went through and pulled some of that.
We had a conversation last Monday night, and I brought up, and I had Peggy pull the history report for the town fire department, and it's just, somebody's gonna discuss later, or,
As a token on you guys' part, that $100, that'd go right to the payment that we're making on that building.
And then,
We still have upkeep and,
would you suggest then that
monthly, we would subtract this from the total owed the trustees.
Right now, something's better than nothing. We're in
I
line
mean,
too,
it
you know?
could be a running tally,
We never would've went ahead with the project if we knew this was gonna happen, but we're making it work, you know, so we're just, if it wasn't been for the Burkholder family, it never would've happened, because they've been over backwards for us,
Right.
yeah, they've done us a good job.
Well, not just you guys, I think everyone in the township, really. I mean, they've done great. I know you guys put a lot of work into that building.
Now, those dollars will come from the general fund?
That would be
No.
water.
No,
That'd be
it's
water.
water,
That'd be
sewer.
water.
No, I'm talking about the amount
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
promised
once
for
we
the
actually,
building. That several $100,000,
Yes.
that's general fund dollars?
yes.
Yes, like, we tried every way. I called the auditor myself and see
Okay.
if we could buy it for, and then lease it for $1 or whatever, but
But 2017 or so, we should be in better shape in the general fund.
well, actually, you'd be in better shape with capital funds and sewer funds. You have 225,000 approximately more dollars to put into the bank, if you will, which a lot of our wages come out of the sewer.
Right.
And of course, some percentages come out of capital, and of course, cars and vehicles and whatnot.
None of that will be general money when the loan's paid off. That loan's paid from sewer and capital.
Okay, I
That's what was
misunderstood.
committed.
I thought that I had seen it come from general, okay.
That's what was committed when we got that loan.
Okay, okay.
I wanted to use capital improvement monies, because there was a building that seemed capital improvement to me. And, in fact, we wrote up recitals and with Beth, and the rest is history, but, the two attorneys, townships included, and Steve can verify, didn't like the idea of capital, you know, and the way it had to go, and, I came up with everything from condos to try to split lines to just lease one spot and call that capital, but it just didn't work out.
No, if there was a spot leased, where would that come out of? Where can that come from, if we lease a spot? Because
No,
it's
no,
our-
we would have bought,
No, I'm saying, if we go through and lease a location, currently from them, a spot, what funds does that come from?
I don't know, Joey, on that one, if we would lease on that one.
I believe general. Land purchases are usually always general.
Even as a lease?
Hey, it's kind of, you know,
Purchase,
I
so it's still
understand what you're saying, that a promise was made or something, but your general fund has been cut over the last 2 or 3 years just by local government from the
Right.
state.
Right, right.
You know, and you're dropping, you know, we were 100,000 under using carryover balance from last year, and most of that is the general fund.
We, at one time, were gonna write a check, if you recall.
Yeah.
And, of course, at that time, attorneys again had issues and they wanted to wait, and,
If you had
Thank
wrote a
God
check,
we
you'd be
didn't.
bankrupt.
you know,
I mean, you're talking, you only have 500,000 in the bank, and
I had misunderstood. I thought when the loan was paid off, that incoming tax dollars would be general fund.
no, it would help because of all, you know, the overall budget. And so therefore, some of the fundings that are in general funds can be utilized with that, but it can only be capital and sewer. Because that's what the levy was for, is the 10% was capital, and then the rest comes out of sewer.
It's not gonna help to the full tune of what we'll say.
No, it's gonna,
Some
dollars
say-
in, dollars out, it's gonna look great.
Right.
What's not gonna look great is the general fund. That's, you know, that's a division. But we do have some ideas, Beth and I do. We think some really new ideas, better ideas than even one we talked about the last time. And we can share that with you in committee or something, you know, so it won't take past the
Those
football
are some
games.
thoughts.
Or basketball.
I know Mr. Fox has an idea as well, that he was gonna address. I know we talked to you about it, but you headed towards it.
Anything you do,
I,
I'd be really appreciated.
I don't know if it's council's decision, but I don't have a problem drop in the water bill because, I mean, I know other entities, we did not, where I worked, we didn't charge.
And the water is sufficient,
Or-
unlike the general fund. It is
The water and
so
sewer.
we're good, and we have never charged the township for water, even when they were in this bill. You know, I mean,
But we started once they moved.
well, it was just metered, you know, that one was, and this one wasn't. It's the only difference that I can see, and, you know, I can see a bit of, from my perspective, I don't see any problem offering that token, because it's always been that way.
It's that building down there.
So right now, the thought is water. What's heat? What's that running?
You're gonna have to get back with that, can't fault my program.
But it's clean, efficient natural gas heat.
And that would come out of our general fund, I don't know if we can,
Right.
I don't know that we can pay another building.
I didn't know if that's something if we could,
Yeah, I guess.
since we're required to have
Well,
this
that's-
water as a village.
Right, but that was my argument, Joey. I said from the initial start, that since we, by law, as a village, as long as Medic 3 is in place, that the village has to provide a place to store it. So that was an opportunity, in my eyes, that if they had a spot there, and Steve can recall all this, that would be valid to say that we, since we're required by law, we can do a capital purchase and do it. Well, then the attorney said, nice try.
What if we don't do a purchase, we just do an agreement like they had with us over here, and then we just take care of who paid for the heat over here?
They did. Yeah, trustees did, yeah.
Is that something we can do with heat and water?
Well, the
That would
heat would
take
be
it.
general. The water, like I say, is a,
I think you'd have to own the building.
Lease it for $1. I don't know.
Well, just think about it, we don't have to decide anything.
Well, this is a curiosity then, you know, years back when we started the program of X number of hydrant fittings every year. Was that from general or was that from the water because it was a water function?
Yeah, water.
Okay, did we ever get all of our starts fittings the way we wanted?
I think we have most of them.
Okay.
last I was told by, I don't know if it was Larry or when it was, that we're good to go. Now, we did make a policy, if you will, that any new hydrants would automatically have them. I would order them with the stores. If you recall, you were even on council at that time, so. But I think we have them all in the main three places that I'm aware of.
Okay.
One of the other things that I'd like to address is, we talked about putting in a water, place to get water down there. Is that, you guys said it wasn't gonna be no big deal, is that still a possibility that?
Yeah, we talked about that too, in fact.
Yeah, last meeting was up.
Yeah, and I talked to, help me out, Bob, I'm a little
Adam.
bumpy. Well, actually, he said, let Alan take care of it. I talked to the owner of S&W Boring, is it?
Oh, Tesla.
Yeah, okay. And so, yeah, they're, in fact, I told him, let us know, work it out with that gentleman that actually is on the fire, and then we would make the tap, Steve, and I told him, just let us know. I have a spot picked out where I'd like to do it, where it would go straight across, just because of logistics, because the machine would have the room to make the bore, and then we would bring in a line, and it was between your pillars, and then from there, you guys could plumb it anywhere you want to, and it would be essentially what you had here. And it would be inside,
Yeah.
so, all in all, pretty good stuff. And we, again, because of the water end of it, that's something doable that we wouldn't have to do out of general fund.
I thought we already said yes to that, didn't we?
We did.
We did, but we're still into
But
the
the first,
logistics of it.
first things of course, now the weather's kind of against us with the snow and the gravel. If we call in the line locate and find out what hazards are in the way and pick the best route, like you said, there's a choice location, preferred location, maybe tap.
We're ready.
So that's on the books for this year then?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
for 2015 definitely.
In fact, I'd say, Steve, it's in our hands now, rather than, if I say us, I mean fire department, it's ours now to make the next steps with.
Got anything else, John?
Not really.
Going in alphabetical order,
Okay,
Mr.
appreciate
Shorter,
it.
you here with the fire department or
Just observing.
just here? Okay, Mr. Souls.
I just want to know if we've come with a resolution to,
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, guys.
stuff we talked about a couple months ago.
If you want to bring up each one and we can tackle each one.
With,
He said discuss each one and we'll,
discuss-
go right down the list.
I think I've sent an answer or whatever to, on the building with the occupancy. And know where we're at in that, or what we're gonna do with that.
Yes. Mr. St. John, would you like to explain what your update is here?
Yes, well, everyone has a copy of the latest responses. As you recall, council spoke with our council, if you will, and had him proceed in this manner. I was informed by Mr. Bowman, the partner of Mark Hagens, who was our solicitor, that, well, first they called me up and I left you a note, as you saw, that, I think I emailed it actually, that Mike Schaefer evidently got a hold of, and I can't remember if it was Mark or Bob, but one of them, I think it was Mark though, I'm not sure she's right, and said that he had, he likes Larry and he could work something out, Larry could comply, so we dropped the whole thing. And I sent an email back to you folks stating that I didn't have a problem with it or have an axe to grind, neither does council. But the council, at last spoken with, just wanted compliance with no downstairs residency and the upstairs residency. So I told him to go forward with it and just drop the case if it can be proved, you know, that there was no downstairs occupancy. Well, since then, Mr. Bowman came back and said, here's your copy, and I passed it on to you. He had actually called the attorney that, for Larry's counsel, which is not Mr. Schaefer, but a gentleman in Fayette, I believe, I can't think of his name without looking it up right here, but, and essentially, he doesn't know why, but Larry has elected to go through with it, so fine, you know, they'll take it through there. It's going through common pleas, and that's where we're at. And I'm sure that there'll be mediation, and, you know, it's in their hands. We've given it to them, and so that's where it's at.
Why is it that the plaintiff can't request for dismissal?
Well, again, I'd rather let the attorney explain that than, because I think he's just calling for dismissal of the case. And admitting allegations to some, but not to others, and if you read on, you know, there's still downstairs stuff, and I'm not gonna go into the legalities of it, again, because I'm not an attorney. And I would have to ask Mr. Bowman that, but he'd be more than happy to explain his position on that. But my understanding is it's, that's not gonna be dismissed like that. You know, it can't be. Again, that's just my understanding, so I'd have to defer to Mr. Bowman on that.
I think it was one that we as a council went through and said that if compliance was there, that we had no further
Right,
issues.
right, but this is a different setup here. This
It is.
Yeah, this is now in a court of law asking it to be dismissed that it was not valid. And so it's a different setup. My understanding, and again, it's only my understanding, you'll understand that by talking with Mr. Bowman, that this is went beyond that point now, so it'll take it to its conclusion. It's out of our hands.
Yeah. This is the only option I see, Larry, is it's basically saying that our codified ordinances are illegal. We must find out if that's true or not, so
Okay.
we'll see it through to the end.
All right. I guess my counsel on both ends, with Schaefer and others, that felt that this was, the council jumped the gun on this situation, and, but, so this was a council decision, or
As far as,
to proceed with this situation in the way it's going?
I don't know that, you say jump the gun, and I would disagree. Because I know I had a conversation with you saying, let's.
Well, we were working on the process that we had going on, and then it went to this step.
It went
Which is
into-
fine, if that's what we have to do, and if this is where we'll get our answer and stuff. But if we're having a problem with paying bills and stuff, and yet we're going to court over things that I thought we could decide this here, this sounds a lot like the gate issue again with the school, and that became a long drawn-out thing, which cost both sides of this community a lot of money. And now it's costing the village, and it's costing me to get this situation taken care of, instead of just being able to come up with a resolution, I believe. But,
No, and to back up, we did say 2 weeks ago, maybe, something like that, but dismiss it if far as we were concerned, we all took it here and
And
just.
before this
So,
motion to dismiss is
We
taking place.
did, they already evidently had taken it another step. The
but don't they
councils-
work for the council?
I'm saying your council and this council,
I-
our council.
We've complied, we're just going along with, and we've answered it. We answered it back in November. Were you aware of it in November or December meeting? You should have gotten, your council was let know before the November meeting. So why wasn't
I
that
didn't
brought
have it.
forth to you guys to make a decision on that?
I didn't have it. First thing I knew was when the question, do we want to, that you looked like you had complied. If you could prove you'd complied, we could dismiss it. And we said, yep, dismiss it. If he's complying.
Well, that was brought to you guys in November, so,
No,
okay.
no. So now, I don't know, you might check your council, because somebody dropped that ball. We did.
Well, I think, if you recall, when you had spoken with me, my understanding was that your personal attorney made direct contact with the village solicitor, and we did not receive an update from them.
Right.
Reference that,
Okay.
which isn't that unusual, but unfortunate. What I can do is I can contact the village solicitor, reference the procedure law on the dismissal, and obviously this council, if it can be dismissed, is not against that, and we'll see where we stand on that,
All right,
okay?
Right, the issue is that the answers that were given to our solicitor were that basically it was illegal, it was unconstitutional, a lot of issues that, and therefore should be dismissed. Whether you had volunteer on a 2-year stay, and there's a bunch of underlying parts that lay into your ordinances and the fact of what you made as an ordinance.
All right. Next.
there was a question I heard about, if Schulman does close up, then how will that affect the water bills across the community?
I don't think, at this point, I don't think we really have a complete understanding of all the domino type effects that the closing of Schulman will have, but they are things that we're looking at. In their letter, they stated, I believe it was March, end of March.
Yeah,
March
something.
1st of April.
March 15th.
It starts.
Yeah, sometime by April, so, that's a good question on what the effects are going to be. I think they're going, unfortunately, be deep. And we had a meeting last Monday of this week, or last week, I'm sorry, pardon me, reference what some of our options may be if indeed they do close and the building sits empty. But at this point, I don't think we really know everything that it's going to affect.
It's gonna hurt. I mean, anything we do is gonna hurt. To what extent?
Well, here again, we have the least amount of business, least amount of industry, and the least amount of citizens, yet the largest staff we've ever had in this community. I don't see how that's possible to continue, but
One of the
I don't know.
things, if you heard when I was speaking to both the police, or the fire chief and the township trustees, that we're kicking every tire right now. We've gone through and we've asked these guys to take a look. So, yeah, we're pretty serious about it because we don't know what's gonna happen. But honestly, it sucks. The unknown.
My concern is, I realize revenues are down, but what is the village doing as a whole to bring more revenue in? Or do we just stay in status quo?
No. At
I
this
mean,
point, it
because
looks.
I mean, I've got-
Downtown's been dead for a long time.
No.
And to me, what I see on the outside looking in is, you're picking on businessmen that are already here because of technicalities and because of, we don't want this type of business in town, or we don't want that, the comments that I've heard in the newspaper and read in the newspaper and that kind of stuff. So why are we approaching it as a, we're gonna bump our chest up type of thing, when what you should be looking at as a whole and as a village and as a council is what can we do to entice people to come here and put their business in here and fill up our town? I mean,
You know, big towns are taking, they can't fill their commercial buildings and stuff, they're making them into lofts and whatnot. I mean, I think I'm still trying to go with the intent of this ordinance, and I've got an individual wants to live there and have a business and put another person up to town, which then gives you more income. I mean, over the years, we've said that people who live here, whether they rent or whatever, and you said, you know, you make this a rental town, they still have jobs, they still bring in tax dollars and stuff, so I'd like to put 2 or 3 in here instead of just 2.
But if you're saying that you want to go off the intent, it specifically says no downtown living. So if you put someone down, you're not going off the intent. To answer the question as far as bringing people in, absolutely.
Yeah,
I want to bring community, I want to bring in businesses.
but let's be honest, this is Stryker, and you're not gonna draw in a multi-million-dollar company just
Why
because
not?
we don't have the resources.
Why not?
Because the resources aren't here. This town
So
has
is
been,
that specific
this town has
on the-
been maintained for the last 20 years.
Is
It
that
has never
based
done-
off of the village itself, or does the Chamber of Commerce also have something to do with that?
Well, I think everybody as a whole does have something to do with it. It's a community-based thing.
Absolutely.
I'm not pointing fingers at no certain individual or certain entity. It's a community-based thing. Wedco, what's Wedco do for Stryker? And how big of Wedco dues does the village pay to get nothing done?
Can't argue that one.
What's the last thing?
You know, I mean, you want to talk about cutting stuff, cut the fact that, stop paying your Wedco dues. You don't need to be part of Wedco, they're not doing anything for you. You know, I mean, you know, start your own. Start a committee that doesn't cost the village anything to go out and look for business.
One thing we have talked about in our meeting last Monday night was, as Joy said, kicking all the tires and asking Gary, asking everybody, take a look at your people, because we've got to do something. Number one. Number two is to set up a committee that work with Chamber, with other people, whoever, that we can get on there and says, let's go out and rattle the bushes, see if we can find something.
Well,
I
we
mean,
have.
I don't know what
and-
something
and-
is.
Okay, we wanna bring in new business. You know, who we gonna get to fill in Schulman's, who we gonna get to this, but yet, we really don't do a whole lot to keep the businesses we have.
Well,
You know, that was brought up that we don't support each other. Rick and I had a long discussion about that and stuff, and, you know, Rick feels that there's a building downtown that's worth $65,000. And we had this discussion that that's a terrible way to think, because this, if you think that, then no one will come here. The bar selling for $27,000 is a huge embarrassment to this community. It sold for $89,000 several years ago, and you put improvements in it, it's not?
It doesn't
It
matter.
should be a slap in the face if there's a problem.
I told you, there's not a building on that street that's worth $60,000. Ask a realtor. That's all you gotta do.
Well, I guess all of our
But is that
taxes should
be-
reflect, is that something we should be proud of?
Is that because of the shape of the buildings, or is that because of the shape of the town? I think they both reflect each other.
It has nothing to do with. the
Because
shape of the building.
if every one of those buildings were full of a business except one, that building that was empty would be worth more because of that fact.
I can't.
So you gotta look, you gotta look at it at both sides. I mean,
Understand that.
and if the buildings were full, not necessarily full, but if we even seen things coming in, the people's property values would be up. We wouldn't have people from out of town buying houses for $20,000 and turn them into rentals. We'd have people that could buy them for $40,000 and $60,000 that could use them as single-family homes. And that's where you're bringing in your tax revenues.
Absolutely.
I mean, and I don't see how any good can come out of Larry's situation with the village, the school situation, all that. It's all a black eye on the town. And it all has a roundabout effect of why people don't want to come here. I wanted to bring my business to town. All I did was run into walls every time. I moved my business to Archibald. Very reluctantly did I want to do that, because I do care about this town, but there was a point where I had to do something. And I have to.
And it shouldn't be that way.
It shouldn't be
No, it
that
shouldn't be
way.
that way.
No.
I've actually contacted a company out of Missouri. It's called Everything Kitchen. They sell everything kitchen stuff. And right now, that lady says she's not looking to put in another store. I've actually told her that we've got property here in our town. I said, you know, if you get any questions later on, contact me. So, gotta do something.
Right.
Can I address just one comment for you, Larry? You know, I know, and we had talked about this, in fact, when I first became village administrator, I didn't see where Whitco was doing anything. I advocated getting out, but the rest of the council was pretty much in tune with that. But the problem is, how business works today is, you have to have, each county must have a one-stop shop, if you will. They're not going to come, it's a state leads program. You have to list it with the state. And if you have a building, which I've had permission to list, the A. Schulman building, from the, well, that's the manager, plant manager. I spoke just last week, just a few days ago, to a huge developer who I think the world of, and knows more about economic development, I'm pretty sure, than most people do in the tri-state area. He has 4 companies that are interested in the A. Schulman building. It's just a matter of getting in. He's been to that site, he told me 4 times. He has not walked through it yet, and he has not talked. He has done his due diligence as far as what they pay for it, and he's still very interested in purchasing it himself and putting businesses in. He has numerous buildings already, and he has the financing and the backing. I spoke with him, if this doesn't come through, what's the options? And he said, right now, the plastics industry is really big. For some reason, whatever it is, timing is right, there's actually 4 that want to be in this area because of competitiveness. And 2 of the businesses demand tower storage, you know, the silo storage and a railroad spur. So he said, with you having the railroad spur, unlike some of the other businesses, like Stridell and stuff that have shorter, you know, smaller ceiling heights, he said, this is your diamond, if you will. This is your crown jewel in the town. This will fill. He feels very comfortable. And he said, I don't know if it won't start out with just 25 jobs, but has a potential into 200-plus jobs again, like they were in the old days. So in that case, that's good. If that doesn't come through, for whatever reason, the only way people find out when they're looking for plastics and stuff is they have to go through what they call the state leads program. And WEDCO has been designated as the state lead. I agree and even brought up and suggested that we have a downtown Inc. or something, local people that know what's going on to be part of WEDCO, to be part of the task force, and also to help the chamber and bring in business into the local area. Eric, you yourself was on council for a number of years, and you know how difficult it was when you were on there, that we, you know, if a business wants to come, you can't stop them. If a business doesn't want to come, you can't make them. That's what I found.
It sounds like the time is unfortunately right because of disgust from many sides, frustration from many sides. So I think if it's one, I truly appreciate you coming up and saying, you know, there's a problem, we need to fix it, why isn't this? We need pushed. I think everyone needs pushed. And this might be a great start to that. But here's something to think about, and I'm not putting you on the spot, but something to think about. You know, what would it take to get your business here in town? Please don't answer it. But what would we need to do to bring someone that grew up here, to bring their business to town? So something to think about. Like I say, I don't want to put you on the spot and say, give me an answer. But start thinking about that, because the answers that you have for that may be the exact same answers it takes for someone else to come to town that didn't grow up here.
It could be, because I tell you, Joey, I would want nothing better than to move it back to Stryker, or to Stryker.
Oh, you're rocks, right?
I mean, I'll more than gladly talk to you guys in private, but not, I mean.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that.
It's my business, and, I mean, like I said, I'm more than gladly to talk to anybody in private, but not.
And you're not the first business person that I've heard say that.
Right.
You're not the only one.
Larry, well, isn't it better though, even though you feel it's an embarrassment, at least there's gonna be somebody in that building? What does the dollar value have to do with it? We got a new business coming.
That's great. I
Maybe
hope
we
it,
get
I hope
an
it
ice
open,
cream
open
shop.
goes, but I don't see how it's possible. You know, it's going to be a tough way to go.
For the business, you mean?
For sure.
Well, yeah.
And you know, people have suggested, you know, there's things that you could do with your Legion. You could run, you know, stuff in the evening, open that thing up more, and run it like the Moose and Montpelier, do something like that. Is that something you guys want to jump in and do? No.
You don't have a staff.
The man
No.
out, he doesn't
Doesn't
have
come
it.
in.
Hire people. Run a business.
It's a nonprofit organization. We got any money.
So's the Moose. Somehow they make it.
Well, they got alcohol. We don't. I don't know what the secret is. We've had lots of ideas from different people, but it's always a staffing, money.
You know, and to go on what Gary's saying, I understand how WEDCO works, and I understand how the state leads program works, but what I'm saying is, maybe it's time to start thinking outside the box. You know, because what WEDCO's been doing, let's be honest, it's not working. And if they got four businesses that want the Schulman building, great. What do we do to get the one in there? And what do we get to do the other three to the other empty buildings that we've got in town too? That's what I'm thinking outside the box. Because WEDCO can sit at WEDCO, and they care about everybody equally
In the county.
in the county.
Right.
Why can't Stryker have somebody that cares just about Stryker?
Well, and that was the initial setup, Eric, that WEDCO was formed and restructured, and I helped do this. And each mayor was to have a task force of 3 people, businessmen and stuff like that, that would take those runs, and if they got a lead, and the executive committee would say, we need a railroad spur, as an example, and we need so many acres of ground that can handle at least 200 employees. Then they would send that part out to each of the task force members. And it would go to the mayor, and the mayor would call the task force and say, hey guys, let's get a meeting together, whatever. We would submit. In fact, I submitted for Menards. I talked to Planson. I talked to Martha Whitaker, I tried to get all kinds of property because it needed so much, it needed a railroad spur, we didn't have a railroad spur, but we could get one. It needed X amount of power voltage, no, I mean, I forget what it was called, Project Tiger, we didn't even know what it was, but we had that opportunity and the task force presented that. Of course, a developer, which had everything going for it, ended up getting it, but I was thankful for it because we have a lot of people employed at Menards from Stryker, Ohio. So even though Stryker may not get that business, it still helps. If you look at Stryker as a whole, I think it was like 7% just a year or so ago when there was a study made that people that live in Stryker area work in Stryker. They work in Archibald, they work in Bryan, they work in Montpelier, wherever, but dollars still come back to the community. So, you know, for the county-wide, and I'm not sticking up for Whiteco per se, although I've been a Whiteco advocate just for being on the board, but that's what that task force is for, like you're talking about.
And that is one thing in our judiciary meeting we had right in our minutes here, was Economic Development Group, which I'm glad you're here, because I'd like to see the chart.
Well, see, I was asked to be on the Economic Development Group. I went to one meeting and was never asked back again, never told when the meetings were or anything.
Oh.
So that's the unfortunate part.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's see if we can do better this time. Because I fully agree, 100%
I mean, and I'm not coming off as somebody who's upset or a businessman. I'm coming off as somebody who lives in this town and wants to see Stryker prosper.
Yeah, right. No, that's what I'm taking.
So,
That's what I'm taking.
Are you interested in being part of that? Still? Are you still interested in being part? Or at least getting some?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
Thanks.
Anything else? All right. That brings us to our committee report. We did have a judiciary committee meeting last Monday. I don't think, did we actually have a chance to type that up?
I typed it.
She did, I got 2 of them, I thought.
Okay, I did.
I might have, whoops, well,
Maybe
you
that's
probably
where it
got
went.
yours.
Maybe that's why you got two.
I was kind of hurriedly throwing them on to get Friday.
Thank you.
Max was unable to be here.
One of the committee members want to take it, or do you want me to take it? All right.
1, 5, 15, or 5 o'clock. The mayor please open the meeting and ask that it be recorded. He also handed out and read the agenda. Purpose of the meeting was to consider changes in village spending due to economic downturn and industry closings, to consider employee payroll reductions, 5%, 3%, 2%, or no changes. Councilman Beck asked Fiscal Officer Beth Rediger had other village wages to compare to. Also, if there was a report to show all employees' annual wage amounts and how they're paid. Fiscal Officer Rediger supplied members with a W-2 report and explained which funds each employee wages are paid from, as well as benefits. Members were also supplied with a spreadsheet of other village wages for comparison. 2, to consider employee insurance share. Fiscal Officer Rediger broke down how much full-time employees pay and what portion the village pays for health insurance. 3, to consider changes in employee policy and procedure, flex time usage, request and vacation request. 4, to consider changes in job duties and positions, full-time versus part-time, and the other way around. Supervision and reporting, job analysis, and economic development. Did I type that right?
That got cut off.
Yeah.
To coincide with that, I still don't have a printer at home. I don't know what's wrong with it, but this is something I had printed out prior to it going down. Just a couple of job analysis templates that I wanted to have one for each of you. But if you want to just take a look and pass those through. This is also a flex time request form. I was looking at our policy procedure book for the village. In section 9 is all of our different forms. Mine doesn't have a single form in there. So I don't know if we have them or had them and they just weren't included, but it's completely blank. So I
We
think,
have them, yeah. We have that, yeah.
Okay.
Should get them.
yeah, that might be something we would like to.
Bethany called for them originally, and then we couldn't find them, so we had Pete send us, there was a couple of the forms that did not coincide with our operation, so we went through together and requested them all, and we had them, correct, Beth?
Yeah, we got them last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry I didn't
Not a
put
problem.
it
I
in your book.
didn't
but-
realize they weren't in there until I started.
Oh, well, I
some
noticed
reviews.
they were, and, it was when, Pete was retiring and we had a new gentleman
Yes,
come in, and.
he's semi-retired. but
Yes, and the new gentleman brought all the forms.
Okay. Well, at your convenience, if we could get those for each, that would be nice. And those are just, I would like to, those are more business oriented than government oriented. I think they're both appropriate, or I could actually take the two of them and amalgamate them together and create one that might be more specific to our needs. But I think it would be a good starting point.
Yeah, I think so too, but yeah, you're right, it's more industrial.
Yeah,
But,
it is.
but it could be used.
Gives you
I
an
would-
idea of what we hopefully can accomplish by completing the job analysis to see what duties are entailed and what time frame it takes. And I still believe that, we need to look at our flex time, our vacation time, our sick time, how it's allocated, our retirement time, our payouts. I think we need to go through the whole thing, not just any one piece, and see if there's any places that we can make some cuts that will benefit.
As was mentioned in our meeting, that we had the whole thing.
Yep.
is Where we have to look, because just, this portion may affect something else.
Correct.
Other things or not.
Correct. So anyhow, I just wanted to add that to the committee report so that you kind of had an idea where I was going. I believe that you probably saw that fiscal officer Rediger had submitted, a copy of what she was going to use for flex time and also vacation time. I think that would, be a nice thing for each department head to do so that you have an idea of what they're doing and how they're doing it, and it creates accountability on all ends.
Mine's mine's with her again.
Do you guys use, what calendar system do you guys use, like a Google Calendar? Is that something that could be shared with like the mayor, so he is, if you enter something in Google Calendar and share it with him, he would know?
Okay, yeah, and I get Google Calendar, I get information. During our next judicial meeting or something, I'll share with you the response from Clemens and Nelson and Pete Lowe himself on how he feels about flex time and how these things need to work and how it was actually coincides with our handbook. But it's too lengthy for, at this point, in our normal meeting, but, yeah, there's lots of avenues, and I can give you his examples, and you can pick the best one, or create a new one.
Just like a Google Calendar would be doing the same thing, except it's just typed in and.
Yeah, I'll explain
There's some things.
some FLSA rules on that, but.
Okay.
Alrighty, that brings us, is there any additional on that committee meeting? All right, that brings us to election of our 2015 president of council. We will open it up to nominations. And then we will also,
Which one are we going for?
election of council president, please.
I'll nominate Terry.
Second.
Sorry, who nominated?
I nominated, wait a minute, I nominated Terry.
Thank you.
I don't want you to think I nominated myself.
Mike, were you the second?
Yes. Jesus.
You are not allowed to question. Are there any other nominations? Are you doing that in jest or in serious?
No, I'm serious.
Okay. Is there a second? Have a nomination on the table, need a second for it to continue? Okay.
Thank you, John.
I don't think we have to pass out slips of paper then to see who made that. I believe we still need to make it official though, do we not? So why don't you do a roll call?
Freaking railroad. Anyway.
Well, Terry accepts the nomination, right?
Yeah.
Beck,
Yes.
Whittick,
Yes.
Wheeler,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Sperling,
Yes.
Blevins.
Yes.
Okay. Our committees from last year, my suggestion would be to keep them the same unless somebody wants to change. Does anyone feel,
I am content where I'm at.
oh, wait a minute. Yes, Rick, I want to make sure.
Does anybody need a copy? Of the
Everybody.
committees?
Yeah, like,
Yes.
couldn't find it in my drawer.
I don't think I do. It wasn't in time.
No.
No, I just made them tonight.
I used to keep them in the drawer right here.
You
I
guys,
think I used to scratch paper.
do you want?
Nobody wants to do anything different?
I'm fine with where I am.
All right.
Did you guys, any of you guys want to change anything?
Would you interested in another? No, I didn't mean in addition to.
In a different
With a
committee.
different.
Okay. With that,
I so move we keep the committees the same as 2014. I so move we keep the committees the same as 2014.
Mr. Blevins seconded. Roll call,
Whittick?
please.
Whittick,
Yes.
Wheeler,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Sperling,
Yes.
Blevins,
Yes.
Beck.
Yes.
Will you give the media a copy, please?
Yeah, I gave him a copy.
Gave him a copy.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, I won't be able to do that another year.
Okay, that brings us to old business. I see semis are parking back here. Did we get the signs?
We got the signs in, put arrows this way, you park, get permit. We have 2 permits, if people came in, so we'll see how.
Far so good.
We're going so far so good.
How much does a permit cost, Gary? Just in case, 0? Okay.
Is there any other old business that I'm forgetting? What you got? Oh,
What's our time on this? Good enough?
I guess we could do it now.
Entertain a motion to enter executive session to discuss employment, compensation, investigation of complaints against public employee, and pending litigation.
Second.
Who seconded it?
Can I make a correction, if I could, regarding the pending litigation? That's not part of it?
Can't without a
Without the
attorney
attorney present.
present.
Oh, okay.
And that wasn't requested.
Okay.
Roll call?
Wheeler,
Yeah.
Fox,
Yes.
Sterling,
Yes.
Blevins,
Nope.
Beck,
No.
Whittick,
What are we doing, Mr. Mayor, so I don't understand before I answer?
I'm not sure, I wasn't advised of why.
We're going into executive session.
I requested an executive session.
Yes.
okay, motion carried. I guess my question is who's included?
What's that?
My question is who's included?
I'm okay with that one.
That's up to council.
Okay.
I would say, police chief, three of you.
It's review, that's fine.
You're more than welcome to use our office, if you want to sit. Somewhere where it's warm. Warm and cozy.
Baseball game on?
Baseball.
Baseball.
Thanks for your time, guys.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate it, Eric. Larry, thanks.
Video?
Yes. A lot of things considered that might not be bad.
Sorry, it didn't allow me.
Okay.
Well, we ask Steve for an interpretation, then
I think he would probably bring it up, hopefully he will bring it up in his report.
Where am I bringing up?
The, one from GCC.
Do we have to make a statement?
Pre-game show.
No action.
No action.
And who makes that statement?
One of you guys.
No action taken on
I have dinner.
executive session.
I'm popping smoke at 8:15. I don't know about you guys.
Okay, that brings us to legislation.
Okay.
There is none. That brings us to administrator report.
I lost it. Now, we had a main valve repair at Railroad and West. Just shortly after I told you we were gonna keep it off. Weather broke and we were able to. I had a picture of it, Bob could have appreciated it, but I can't find the picture. But basically what happened was we had corrosion, and I know you can appreciate corrosion since you're an expert on limestone, on bolts, not a good thing. All the bolts heads were off of them on this big valve there, just so the road that much. So, long story short, we put new bolts back in. We were not a real hard fix, luckily. And
Gas was okay to it?
yeah, everything was good, no leakage. We did use washed pea stone instead of the very corrosive lime.
Limestone.
And we typically wrap all our stuff that we repair now in plastic, just to keep that stone away. So that's done. We had a water leak on Mulberry Street. The guys were filling potholes. with Cold Mix while I was gone. I spoke with Wes several times. I spoke with Jeannie Allemang when I was down there. We do have a parcel of ground that I'm working with, or I haven't worked yet, but I plan on working with. He hasn't called me yet. There's a parcel of ground here that we own that nobody knew we owned. And so this farmer is getting it taken care of.
Where is that located at?
Actually, you know where your gas thing is down at the end of Lynn Street there?
Yeah, we own.
Right,
Street,
okay.
yeah.
Well, beyond that, for whatever reason, in that section, and you can pass that around if you want, Joey. and
Oh,
show-
I can't see.
There's a right, yeah, I've seen that before, and there was a spot when I've checked out our property, because we're gonna do some work, and I didn't know where our boundaries were. That's a sewer easement or something, a drainage.
Well, this is an actual, the village owns the property, not
Yeah.
just easement into it. And so, researching that, trying to figure out what exactly that is, because the surveyor went through and you go through the volume of plats, and you go through the deeds and look at that, and I've done it many times. He says he can't find any record on it, so he wants to know what to do, so I'm thinking general fund. You know,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Make it work. Last week, we were thawing pits and repairing water meters. There's 4 inches of frost in the drive, and people are getting a lot of pipes freezing. Problem is, you know, it's getting cold, but we don't have any snow and that, you know, in some ways that's a bad thing. In fact, the guys, and I wasn't out there, I certainly couldn't have breathed in that cold weather period. I walked around with a hanky over, but they actually had to take the torch with them and hold the heat the spud bar so their gloves wouldn't stick. Because that cold, that's amazing, you know, but hey, you gotta work in all types of weather. They did do they trimmed some trees at various locations, particularly on Curtis Street. And then I've been working on the budget and policies from last Monday's meeting. So, and like I say, I found some interesting things, and Beth and I crunched some numbers, and there's some other avenues out there too that may, you know, in the future, things for the council to look at. And that's all I have.
Question, oh, go ahead. No, that's right. Can we do some of that cold mix yet on roads, or is that pretty much shot?
No, we can still do it. What we do is we have to heat it up. It's pretty shot when it's below zero.
There's something on, I think it's on here somewhere. I did it a couple times in the vehicle.
Yeah, there's more to go.
Defiance?
Right there at Vine Street.
Is that where it's at?
The hole you're talking about?
I don't know, there's one up here somewhere.
Yeah, just before Vine Street.
Which side of the road, Joey?
Heading just north of Vine Street on the west side.
You'd slow down to 40, maybe.
It holds about like this
Just
here.
threaten.
I don't want to. I did it a couple times.
They live next to me and I don't know whether or not I'm doing it.
No, we used up what we had. We can get some more. In the wintertime, what we do is we have this big propane tank and a torch, and we get a scoop of it in a bucket, and I think I showed you pictures of it one time.
Heat it up.
Yeah, heat it up and
Yeah.
hurry it up. You know?
With that one just being on the main.
Yeah, I've got you covered.
Yeah.
In fact, that other one on Defiance, that was going to be repaired with hot mix, if you recall, but then we had an issue with the contractor, he couldn't make it back up, and I'll leave it at that. So, and you had a
We
question?
have a serious water problem, where we gotta call in a contractor. Do we have a backup, or is Lingby still in business?
My understanding, he's still in business under a different name.
Different name. So we have somebody.
Yes, in fact, we called Mike. I have not talked to Tom personally, but I have a hotline number of his supervisor. I can call him at any time, and I also have Tom's too, but I chose not to speak with Tom at this point. Tom has been excellent for Stryker, I will tell you that. He has been our mentor. You know,
I just wondered if we.
yeah, no, we have that. Of course, there's other contractors that if we need, you know, to do things. And we fix a lot of stuff on our own too, for that matter. It's not, we do the Lingby stuff when it's really deep. And I feel that it's more dangerous than I believe our men need to be in. Or, you know, stuff like that sewer that we use, you know, that was, we surveyed it. I feel fortunate that we have enough expertise that we can do the engineering and we can make sure that we have drainage and we can be that part of it, but, yeah. We're good.
I sent you a message. This goes together.
I have spoken with Chief Slusher on that, and yes, actually, Chief Slusher and Administrator St. John, I was just kind of briefly in on it, submitted it to the, this was a couple of years ago. So technically, yes. It may need to be updated.
Yeah, you should.
Probably does, since now the fire department's not there. So, yeah. Village officials.
Just gonna go right here.
All right. You go right
Don't waste
there.
time.
Okay.
Don't waste time.
Again, just to reiterate, looking forward to having James Shire on our staff. Again, you can just see in his brief description, he was also a K-9 officer, and actually his K-9 is still with him, Malik, and whether we put him into service, I doubt. But the good thing is Steve Mendez did offer, if he did want to bring Malik in and do some work, it wouldn't take much of anything really to get him recertified. Well, Dan Ryan.
Corey.
Yeah, Corey Nichols is a master trainer now, and he can very easily recertify James if we would ever, entertain that notion. It'd be fun. Not a whole lot going on. Well, I mean, we did have a little bit of a busy month since the last report. 83 total calls from our last meeting, 25 traffic warnings, 5 traffic citations, and 5 adult arrests. Again, you've had plenty of opportunity to look down through there. If you have any questions, let me know. I included the year end on the last 2. The first, where it says December, why it does that, I'm not real sure. I can't just get it to give me the actual, just the year totals without that December in there. But if you just look on the far right 3 columns, obviously the 2013 to December 31st, 2014, and it just kind of compares the 2 from the year prior, and then the percent change, either plus or minus on there. We did have, obviously our traffic stops were a lot higher. We did have a large increase in just general property crimes, whether it's breaking and entering, suspicious persons, just office area, I guess just general extra patrol and things of that nature. Without adding those up, I know there were pretty significant increases with a lot of those. But as far as the year goes, we were only up 2% from 2013 to 2014, a 2% increase, which isn't a whole lot, in the broad spectrum of things. Really, that's about it. I mean, you've had the weekend to look the packet over and take any questions.
Questions for Chief Slusher?
Got a comment. It's gonna be scary, I did the math, okay? You said you had voluntarily done a staff reduction of 40 hours a month?
Yeah.
Which is 10 hours a week. And, I took 40 hours a month times 12 a month is 480 hours. And what's our average part-time wage?
But, yeah, 1150,
Okay,
1175.
so I had thrown 20, let's just drop it down to 10, and if we drop it down to 10, which I realize is a freckle more than that, At $10 with no benefits, $10 an hour, that's $4,800 a year. I would say for one, I really truly appreciate the effort, but I really think that for the benefit of those part-time officers and for the 24/7 coverage, we'd love to see that. What do you think about putting those guys back on?
Bob, gentlemen, I would love to be able to reinstate 24-hour coverage. Obviously, it's going to be with your consent. I feel as if we have a very professional staff. You know, the guys are willing to work. I have the guys that are available to work. My biggest issue, again, is training. I have to be able to train this department, and right now I can't. I don't know, you know, if, I also want to be fiscally responsible. And I know that it's the nature of police to be expensive and to come directly from that general fund. You know,
How much, how much training that $4,800?
It would help tremendously. I mean, and I'm not asking for, you know, an 8-hour block every month. I'm honestly, I'm looking at 8 to 12 hours a quarter. So, you know, 32 to 48 hours a month for each officer. Whether that's sending them to a formal school or to be able to pay them while they're, you know, attending the training consortium at Owens.
Because you said we already get a wonderful bargain.
Oh, I pay just over $300 a year.
And that's for the whole department.
And I can send unlimited officers to over, it's like over 225, 230 hours of training.
But it's getting them there.
So, I mean, that's the second issue that we have. The first one, she just went through and did really quick, more accurate than our pen and paper. It's just under $6,000 for those hours a year.
Then it's 837 with OPERS, another 800, so you'll get.
Oh, 7,000.
Yeah.
So, under $7,000 for security.
Right. For safety and security, I think.
You're not going to get an argument out of me for, you know, keeping 24-hour.
And I don't want to see those part-timers leave town or something over the sake of a few hours that maybe is really meaningful to them.
You don't have to. I mean, it
was on his website. We didn't do it.
From my standpoint, I would like to go back to the complete coverage, but then that's what these guys.
What I would like to look at though is, okay, we do that, but then let's see how we can, and maybe 1 month, you cheated a little bit to get that money to send them to training. See what I'm going there? Yeah, but we need to look into it, but I don't know, that's just a thought.
Sandy,
I'm not doing numbers because I don't do those.
after our judiciary the other night, it really struck me as far as from what accounts things were coming from. You know, our general fund is horrible. And we're okay, but it's not very good. And one of the concerns I have, and this was one of the questions that we had that night with Beth, was if we have you out with a truck plowing, can we take that from the street water? The answer is no. So we're still pulling from general fund, but we're not getting the general fund bang for that buck, so to speak.
You can only do that if he's off duty as an officer.
Correct. So one of the concerns I have is, I'm paying you, and I truly appreciate you guys out there plowing.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's great. But my concern is, we're paying it from a fund that is hurting. Now, if that's after hours, absolutely, take all you want. But my concern was using police at that time with the general fund, when we're cutting hours per week, because our general fund is hurting. I mean, I like what you guys are doing with, but it just kind of hit me when we talked the other night, when we found out where everything was coming from.
Well, everything they've been doing.
Oh,
It's doing awesome.
But we did have 2 officers plow this last time sheets off hours. And then they can be paid from street.
And I think that's
And
great,
then,
because,
you know,
I mean,
6
that
hours.
relieves some of the administrators, that helps them out.
Steve, how do you weigh in on this? Because I know we've had this conversation before, and you volunteered to help today.
Right.
Uh,
See, and I'm not so much worried about an officer being on duty
Okay.
in plowing snow, because, first of all, we're in a 4-wheel drive, and we can get to wherever we need to go quite, fairly rapidly.
You can, yeah.
If JR was plowing streets last night, and he did during his on-duty time, he can very easily go to a scene and secure it. If he has to make an arrest, he can just as easily call me. And if we need a marked vehicle,
Okay.
a deputy can just as easily respond. I mean, if we need a marked vehicle there, that is really the furthest from my concern.
Okay.
In the way I see it, I mean, he's got his, we have our radio on.
They
and
are
we're in
allowed to
uniform.
do it as emergency personnel.
Yeah, they can.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just,
That was
It's
just one of
just-
those yellow flags that came up to me the other day,
Right.
and we were talking, I thought, oh, maybe.
Now, we're not gonna be out there, stopping traffic, and, conducting traffic stops. Although I did get into somewhat of a pursuit with some snowmobiles a couple of years ago. And,
In a snowplow.
yeah.
I guess it was our street.
No, I didn't get it up, but I did track them down at a rapid pace. And I did stop them, and I got out, and once they saw my uniform, they were like, oh boy, turn the snow machines off, and I proceeded to chew them out a little bit, and I just told them, because they were running stop signs and things of that nature, but no, it wasn't a pursuit. Thank you.
So I think it's one of those that, at least for me, I'd like to see it come back, full coverage. Yeah.
You're not gonna get an argument out of me, but again, I do have genuine concerns, and I do wanna be fiscally responsible.
Appreciate that. We know it didn't.
Yeah, I guess it's our task to fix the general fund problem.
Right.
Yeah.
So the topic go up tonight.
Well, speaking of that, I do believe I heard or got an email from the state or something concerning the filing date for the May election, which is,
it is.
we got another 45 days yet or something.
August, well, I don't know, I didn't ask the May.
Oh, okay, May.
I asked her the May, and she said at the election board, there's no other things on, so we would be the only, which is
That's
like.
expensive. That's very
Yeah,
expensive.
if there was a school or something on, the November election is August 5th, is the filing
Okay.
date.
But it gives us more time to talk.
And I have a number for what we had talked about.
Okay. We should call, I guess we're not at that point yet, but we should organize another committee meeting, but we're still in the middle of it.
Yep. Anything else for Chief Schlasser?
Did you wanna address the parking?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. From his, and I guess, if you don't have a copy of it, I'm not sure where I put it, but I do have a copy of it.
You should.
Yeah, I do. Just got too many different things going.
That's it. All right, this is basically the packet that I provided the mayor, including an offense report. If any of you gentlemen want it for your own records, I'd be more than happy to provide it, including the emails. But basically, you just got some photographs of the violation, or what perceived to be a violation, and then the email chain between Prosecutor Rhonda Fisher and I, and it starts on the back page and then work your way up to the front. So, yeah, I saw the violation. I contacted Mr. Souls about it, and, you know, he pretty much said, well, let's see what happens in court. So I ended up just contacting, you know, Rhonda, you know, via email, and sent her the photographs as attachments, and her responses are, you know, pretty much that this is clearly a planning and zoning issue, and that, you know, her opinion, and she is the prosecutor, and I will go with her opinion. I'm not gonna put this village, my department, or the mayor in any type of, you know, I guess liability in that respect. I am going to go with the prosecutor because she is the prosecutor and she is the one that has to prosecute it. We, you know, as a village, kind of got set straight with Judge North a few years back when we thought that he wasn't allowed to park in the
Loading zone.
well, in the state right away, but it was, you know, according to Judge North, it's not a state right away, and that's his property, so he doesn't consider that to be the sidewalk, and they were not parked on the sidewalk according to the judge, and who am I? He's the judge, and I'm not gonna second guess a judge. So, it is his county, and what the judge and what the prosecutor says goes, and the prosecutor has deemed this a planning and zoning issue, and as far as I'm concerned, it's a dead issue.
I think that complies with what we had discussed. With distance-wise, that type of a deal, it becomes more a question of that being parked there. The 150cc, was that?
The ORC, I think on the very first email to Rhonda, I cited the ORC and pretty much just the guts to it. The prohibited parking, there is a provision for prohibited parking under the B section, which clearly says, you know, any motorized bicycle, which is a moped, or any motorcycle less than 150 cc's may be parked on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Okay, that is the only provision to parking on a sidewalk.
Okay.
Those are clearly not motorized bicycles.
No.
They are clearly not motorcycles
And
under
they're
150 cc's.
for sale rather than just.
However, right, and that is a total another issue
So-
that, again, is under planning and zoning.
But the interpretation that we've been handed in the past is simply that it's not on the sidewalk.
Right.
Correct.
Well, when he had them parked on the south side,
Okay.
along Lynn Street,
Okay.
and technically that is not part of the business district.
Correct. Business district runs down the front. I've
Correct.
always wondered myself in the back of my mind, although it's down the front, does that extend to the rear of the building?
No.
And his interpretation was no.
Front.
It's
Okay,
front
gotcha.
only.
Okay.
See, we went through and we made that zoning just here recently, describing sidewalk.
Yeah,
Right.
that was in the past 12 months.
Yes.
Definition. And we even altered that by the third reading because it was motorized, that could have
We were
included
looking
washing
at
machines and whatnot, but then
A
that.
mixer.
Yeah, mixer. But then that came along that said 150cc on the gas-fired engine, so we struck that from the ordinance.
We followed the ORC based off of that.
Correct.
And then just described sidewalk, required sidewalk for ADA
With the
compliance.
ADA.
We just went to the width we had.
Little over.
So the intent at that point in time was to make a certain allowance for display of stuff.
Correct.
There becomes a question of legality on what's being displayed, but Judge North has made his decree, I remember that. It's been a few years ago.
I'm out of the loop, Steve, on, this is a new complaint in the front or something?
That was,
12/17.
yeah, December 17th.
Okay, yeah, I was gone there. So Rhonda said that it's a zoning issue. Mayor, have you had any luck with our planning commission yet?
I've got 2 people committed. I was going to ask Councilman Sperling if he would like to remain on that, because we can have a council representative. And if he says yes, then I have membership.
Okay, who's the other members?
One would be Terry Willis from the hair salon, and then the other is Tim Moore.
Alrighty.
Mr. Falk wasn't, I know he was on it.
He had been on the previous, I did not contact him since I had a volunteer with Terry Willis, and Mr. Moore had wanted to become part, because he had considered, and I think I'm probably spilling beans on him, but had thought about running for council. So he wanted to kind of just ease into it and see if it was something that he really wanted to do or not, but did agree to that. So with that, I will put that together and send out notices and contact to everyone and see what we can do.
Thanks, Steve.
No problem.
Thanks, Steve.
Ms. Rediger, did you want to say anything about your clerk report in person, or?
No, but I did have one thing sitting here that I would like to mention.
Okay.
Just a request. I had asked this last year, and I know council tossed it around and talked to some solicitors, and it kind of got dropped, but just sitting here listening to Mr. Short tonight, and the issues of the past, I still would like to request that council look at a village solicitor attending every council meeting. Everywhere I've worked, even Alberton, as small as it was, had a village solicitor at their council meetings. I can't say everywhere because Blakesley does not, but, you know, we have a $50,000 budget. So, we have one attend if we have something serious going on, but I feel as fiscal officer, everything changes when an attorney's here.
But we don't, we kind of choose a solicitor for specific applications. Do we actually have?
We have a solicitor at the present, until further,
We're supposed to do that yearly, aren't we?
every 2 years, actually, is what it says. Now, you folks met Mr. Bomar, Bob, little different personality than Mark, still in the same firm. I did speak with him, just took the liberty, if he would be able to come to council meetings, and again, that's up to you folks, he can, and if he can't, Mark can.
Is he well versed in municipal
Yes,
rules?
yes.
I think we looked at it before.
We did,
Yes.
we did.
You have Mr. Thompson that we talked, brought a thing, and I think he's very
We need to
qualified
get
also.
to that. Again, that's true.
Find out where we're at on our 2 year, whether this is the correct year we're supposed to do last year.
Technically, you can do it at any
You can do
point.
it anyway. Doesn't matter.
No, we don't have a contract. I
No,
mean,
we
it's
can do
ongoing.
it, we can do it, we usually do it 2 years.
Right, well, the ORC says that you're to renew every 2 years. Now, the contract that we had with, that Mark wrote up was pretty much ongoing unless otherwise terminated. So either way, I mean, you're good to go.
Let's put that on the agenda for next month.
Okay. Do we want a, judiciary meeting?
Yes, please.
All works.
Thanks.
Next meeting is the, we like to do that, right?
Mr. Chairperson. Let me look at the calendar here. Next meeting will be, it's all in there.
The next meeting will be the 9th.
You wanna do the second, the week before?
Mayor, do you have a copy of my calendar?
What's that? 5 o'clock?
I do not. All I got was that.
Where do you wanna go?
How about anyone else, because I know I passed them all
Oh,
on.
5:30
I think
early.
council meeting,
5:30?
Wheeling had it, yours.
5:31.
Did you have a copy of these?
35.
I could, yeah.
Can I borrow it to see what dates?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, I thought you just wanted to select it, I'm sorry.
Well, the last time we had a 5, I got here like 3 after. I mean, I really.
It's up to you. Let's do the 5:30. There we go. Okay.
Judiciary meeting.
February 2nd.
Yep.
Judiciary meeting will be at 5:30.
Okay. Council will go back to 7.
Well,
Unless it's a ball game.
I'd like to actually discuss moving that up to the 6 o'clock, because our meetings are back in order.
One meeting a month, and there's quite a bit of agenda that goes through. I think we gave it a year to see how it played out, but most meetings are,
What goes in the 6 o'clock time frame to start?
We did.
What does that do to you guys though?
Oh, that probably worked fine, but see, when I first got on, we started at 7, and after a couple of 11 o'clocks or 11:30s or pushing midnights, that's when it got bumped up earlier. But 6 o'clock, I can do 6, much easier than 5.
Go ahead.
I so move that we move our meeting times, regular meetings back to 6 PM.
Yeah. I second that.
Any discussion? Roll call?
February 2nd, 5:30.
Fox,
Yes.
Sperling,
Yes.
Levens,
Yes.
Beck,
Yes.
Whittick,
No?
Wheeling,
Yes. Judiciary 5:30 on the 2nd, council 6 o'clock on the 9th.
Ultimately, I would like to see Medic 3, or perfect scenario to have Medic 3 go to the new fire hall. And one of the things I talked to Tad after last week was, talking about, in his words, an olive branch going out to help with some of the costs, because of the things that have happened in the past economically, is that, if you look, maybe we can start to soften them up a little bit about thinking about moving the squad down, because they do have the space, and, it would be nice, considering that most of the EMTs actually live on the south side of the tracks, and most of the calls, historically, I can speak from experience, are on the south side of the tracks, and do tend to go, obviously, towards Bryan Hospital. And so it would be nice ultimately to get down there, but I don't see that happening right away. So I would like to make a motion that we effectively immediately move Medic 3 unit from the existing facility in the back up to the old fire hall. in that space.
Can we have discussion first, or do we need a motion before we do this? Okay, I'll second that, and then discuss.
The reason it's really come to my attention is that, and my own ignorance, I did not know that there is no telephone line back there, and there is no bathroom back there for the EMTs. I don't have to go into a lot of detail about the 2 AM calls, sometimes nature calls when medical calls come in, and they do not have a bathroom. I think that's unacceptable, and I would like to see it move back up to this former position.
Great. Now, my turn. Springfield Township Fire Department is one of the very few departments in the United States that's been successful in all 4 programs of the Assistance Firefighter Grant Program. We've been very successful. I am the grant writer. I've done a fine job.
I agree.
It's a true
statement.
Give credit where credit is due.
It's good, yeah.
Anyways, every truck you see that's got a leaper on the side was because there was in excess of $10,000 in grant monies involved in it. So anyhow, we anticipated a number of years ago leaving that building. We got a grant for $90,000 or so for particulate filters on all the diesel-fired vehicles. And we got the truck-mounted ones so we could take them with us if we left the building, which we did. part of writing that grant was to point out in a very well-written narrative statement the known carcinogen makeup of the particular matter that comes out of an exhaust engine, or a diesel engine. And it's fine, you can't see it, it's on everything. It's on the turnout gear, it's on the kitchen countertop, it's in the bathroom, it's on the coffee pot, it's everything over there, including the squad and all the supplies in the squad. I wrote that narrative. We got the money because of this problem. I cannot vote in favor of moving it up into that building without an exhaust collection system. That's just my position of where I'm at. I cannot vote for that until there's an exhaust collection system in place.
And every EMS, every village in this county is in violation of that, because there are no exhaust systems, particulate filters in place.
True.
Even at the main office in Bryan, there are no particulate filters.
Yes.
So,
But I wrote that narrative. We received the grant money. I cannot therefore endorse moving that vehicle.
How much would you spend to invest over here, and then how long before you move over there?
I have no idea if that could even be a reality. I mean, based upon.
Would you be wasting money if it happened in
months,
months?
you know.
Well, I think any type
It's
of,
a shoreline coming down from the ceiling that we had before, and that's about it. Maybe some storage space for the supplies and, you know, having a telephone line for a fax machine, so they can fax in their time sheets and their patient reports. No, it was a good location before, they're on the main street.
Is there an automatic door on the far bay next to what used to be their kitchen?
Yeah,
The front bay?
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Could it be moved a little over so
I mean, I
that
just think bringing it to the front of the building, I mean, I guess I would negotiate that. I mean,
Well,
it
that
just
would
seemed
keep-
like it was a good spot where
Every,
it existed, but
every bay was wired with drop cord and air also. Wasn't you didn't need
it
air.
would
for
keep
the
the
squad.
fumes away from the
I guess
offices?
I guess the
is
main
what I was
point is
thinking.
just, it's nice it would be on the main street.
Yeah.
Oh, I understand.
Their access for the EMTs and the squad itself.
Yeah, if you put it
The
clear
restroom
down
would be,
there.
I'm sure Robert would.
I didn't even think of the restroom portion of it. I thought of,
I didn't.
I know that when the firemen as well, they would back in, and so they would block traffic. Not that it's a big deal, but I heard a comment that, well, this is kind of nice, we can just whip in and back in, so I thought we did good. I did talk to the director on it. You know, of course, he doesn't have the concerns you do, and I did go to the board meeting, and I sit on the advisory board. I don't have a problem personally, whatever the council wants to do, I'll make it happen. I guess.
It's pretty clear down there, it'd be away from, like you said, it'd be away from the offices.
I would request, as I have our guys, that they open up the doors completely first, and then fire up
I
and
think,
pull out.
because we used to have an issue with the exhaust, that we would always start the truck up, pull it out to the pad while they waited on other EMTs to come up to the.
With the door open.
And they were always, exactly, with,
And it killed you, you
you
know.
know,
yeah, as long as they don't sit in there idle.
they never had, I mean,
Right, right.
they
I'll be the
they were,
first
I
one to
was the
tell you
chief,
what
and they never,
exhaust is.
as far as I know, they don't.
Yeah, you don't want to hide.
But I do, what they're looking at is, Medic 3 has actually bumped up. Medic 3 is in pretty good shape as far as runs. They're really pleased with our first responder. We're not on the bottom of the barrel. I will say this though, from my surmising of, and speaking with them, it still appears, and in fact, that's gonna ask, one of the people to come in and speak at one of the mayor's meetings on this exact issue, because they want to be able to get the message out, and you know where that's coming from. I don't know, Medic 3 was supposed to be replaced a long time ago, they told, you know how much a medic costs. I think they're looking at first responder type stuff, so as far as, you know, your position, Bob, of investing money into that unit with that condition, I fear that, there won't be a Medic 3 per se. And I'm as concerned as that, quite frankly, as you folks are about full coverage and everything, because I know when you go under cardiac arrest, you have a very short time.
Jim's been the director now for going on 6 years or more, and it's always been a discussion about pulling squads and this and that.
And they
It's
have
still,
both
it's still
squads.
here,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, thanks to people like Robert Lee and Jay Jenkins.
Absolutely.
The other EMTs that are keeping it in service, so we owe that to them to put in, I feel, a better location.
And we're talking the front access.
Exactly. Whether it's the same bay or not, I guess that's be considered, I would be happy to be in the up front.
I forwarded to you that ward exhaust system email or
Yes, I have.
info. Did you by chance get a price? Because it's kind of specific to the
Yeah.
vehicle.
Honestly, I wanted to wait till I saw what the board was going to do, and if it was good money after bad, if it was, you know.
Well, if,
All right, there's a motion on.
if those, ballgame, if those, others felt it was okay without the exhaust, it's just my position, I feel I have no choice but to.
Well, I understand.
Where does the money come from for that?
That was, the firefighters, we have federal government.
No, I meant for that piece of equipment you're talking we should buy. Who's gonna pay for it?
He already bought that.
Well, ours is about, you're asking for this, for the squad. So where that money comes from. That's a good question. I don't know if there's grants available. I don't know if the Williams County EMS would be in a position to pay that. If they did, they'd probably have the other squads using the same equipment.
It's just, it's nice that the fire department got the money for that, and after you, obviously, but, you know, but unfortunately.
So we know someone that can write a grant for us.
Yeah.
If there's monies available.
It is very good.
EMS, in fact, I need Tad's signature.
Volunteer to.
We have a motion on the floor with a second. Any further discussion?
This is going so well, who cares about a ball game? We should.
Roll call.
Gun.
Burley,
Yes.
Blevins,
Yes.
Beck,
Yes.
Whittick,
Yes.
Wheeling,
Yes.
Fox.
Yes.
I move we adjourn. Did I wait too long?
Corso picked the Buckeyes, just to let you know.
Yeah. Did he?
Yeah.
He's the man. Hey, we're drinking coffee. Ohio State coffee cup. It happened to be 2010 Rose Bowl. Ohio State 26, Oregon 17.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really? Yeah. And thank you, by the way, Steve.
Well, thank you.
Camera's still on.
Thank you.